Can Bitcoin survive the next crash? I mean, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's something that everybody in finance talks about every single time the market takes a dive. Today, we are going to unpack that exact question. We'll look at the threats, the built-in defenses, and what the future might actually hold for the world's first cryptocurrency. Okay, let's get into it.
You've probably seen the headlines over the years. There's literally a website that tracks every time a major publication declares Bitcoin dead. And yeah, it's happened over 400 times. And yet, after every single spectacular crash, it has somehow clawed its way back, hitting brand new highs. But with all these new pressures from regulators in the global economy, the big question is still out there. Is this time different? Is its legendary resilience about to face its ultimate test?
To even begin to understand its future, we have to understand its past and how it was designed in the first place. So let's start with a quick look at Bitcoin's wild ride.
And this takes us all the way back to the beginning. This is the very first line from the original Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto's vision. It wasn't about creating some crazy speculative asset. It was about creating a new kind of money for the internet, one that didn't need banks or any middlemen. And that core idea, it's absolutely crucial for understanding why its biggest supporters are so passionate.
And the technology that makes all of this work is the blockchain. The easiest way to think about it is like a global, public receipt book that anyone can look at. Every transaction is a block that gets linked to the one before it, creating a chain. This whole design makes it incredibly hard to cheat the system or to spend the same digital coin twice. And it does it all without a central bank keeping score.
But this revolutionary technology has had, well, a pretty turbulent history. It's been defined by these price cycles that are, let's just say, not for the faint of heart.
I mean, you can see a really clear pattern emerge when you look at Bitcoin's history. Massive run-ups, followed by these deep, long crashes. From the early days back in 2011 to the infamous crypto winter of 2018 and all the way to the most recent bottom in 2022. Look, these aren't just market corrections. They are epic boom and bust cycles that have really become part of Bitcoin's identity.
So let's put some hard numbers on that volatility because it's pretty wild. In November 2011, the bottom price was just over $2. By December 2017, it peaked at over $19,000. Then, of course, it crashed again, bottoming out around $3,000 a year later. Each cycle just brings these staggering gains and absolutely gut-wrenching losses. Volatility isn't a bug, it's practically a feature of its entire history.
But like we said at the start, this time really could be different. The threats that are facing Bitcoin today, they're just more complex and way more coordinated than ever before. So let's take a look at this gathering storm.
For years, Bitcoin pretty much operated in this regulatory gray area. It was the Wild West. Well, that era is over. From the EU's big MiCA framework to a renewed push for clear rules in the US, governments are stepping in. Now, these rules could bring legitimacy, which is good, but they could also stifle innovation and bring this decentralized world under centralized control. It's a double-edged sword.
Then there's the environmental question, and it's a big one. According to a UN-backed study, the global Bitcoin network consumes more electricity than the entire country of Pakistan. And the energy mix is, well, it's pretty revealing. A staggering 45% of that power comes directly from coal. This environmental footprint is a massive risk, both for its reputation and potentially for future regulation.
And then there's the fact that there's no safety net. In traditional finance, if your bank fails or your brokerage account gets hacked, there are safeguards, right? Like FDIC and SIPC insurance. If you make a mistake, you can often reverse a transaction. With Bitcoin, you are your own bank. There's no insurance, no one to call for hacks, and every single transaction is irreversible. That freedom comes with a ton of responsibility and a whole lot of risk.
And finally, there's the risk from inside the market itself. Compared to huge markets like gold or the S&P 500, Bitcoin's market is just not as liquid. What that means is a few large players, people call them whales, can have this outsized impact on the price, making it really susceptible to manipulation. It's a market where a single tweet could, and absolutely has, sent prices swinging like crazy.
So, those are the threats. Pretty serious stuff. But Bitcoin was designed from the ground up to be resilient. So let's pivot and look at its built-in armor, the arguments for why it just might survive anything thrown at it.
This right here is maybe the most powerful argument for Bitcoin's long-term value. While the market price is just chaos, its monetary policy is set in stone. The code dictates that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, period. Unlike government currencies that can be printed whenever, Bitcoin's supply is finite and it's predictable. This hard-coded scarcity is its fundamental anchor in a stormy sea.
And here we see the human side of that belief. This quote from a long-term holder, a hodler, reveals this deeper conviction. For a lot of people, it is not just about getting rich quick. It's about having an asset that's completely outside the traditional system, one that gave this person, in their words, peace of mind during a tough time. This ideological commitment creates a really strong base of holders who just will not sell no matter how crazy things get.
And funny enough, one of the biggest threats we talked about, regulation, is also a sign of maturity. The arrival of regulatory frameworks like MiCAR, the launch of mainstream products like Bitcoin ETFs, and the growing number of big corporations adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets, these are all steps toward legitimizing the asset and building a much more stable foundation for its market.
And this brings us to one of the most debated uses for Bitcoin. With its fixed supply, its inflation rate is algorithmically guaranteed to go down over time. In fact, right now, it's already lower than that of the US dollar. Proponents argue this makes Bitcoin the ultimate hedge against the debasement of government-issued or fiat currencies.
So, we've seen the gathering storm of threats, and we've seen the built-in armor of resilience. This brings us to our final section. Will Bitcoin survive, or will it decline?
The debate really does boil down to this one question. Is Bitcoin anti-fragile, meaning it actually gets stronger from shocks and attacks? Or is it a really fascinating technological experiment whose time is running out as it faces all this unprecedented pressure from regulators, environmental concerns, and internal market risks?
Looking ahead, there are really a few potential paths you can see. It could see renewed growth fueled by more big institutions buying in. It could enter a long, slow decline if regulation becomes too restrictive or if that environmental narrative really takes hold. Or, and this is maybe the most likely, it could just keep doing what it does, surviving the crash but remaining a high-risk, niche asset for people with a very strong stomach.
And I want to leave you with this final thought. We've spent this whole time asking if Bitcoin can survive in our world, but maybe, just maybe, the more interesting question to think about is the opposite. If this decentralized, transparent, and scarce digital asset actually does succeed in the long run, is the traditional financial system truly prepared for that?